one of the defense attorneys actually referred to her as a damaged primitive child.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, at a young age, but like I was saying before, neurologically, your your prefrontal cortex just gets
Right.
rewired, right? Your amygdala, right? These things are responsible for regulating your emotions, your fear, your rage, things like that. An overactivity in one and a decrease in activity in another, a decrease in the prefrontal and an over one in the amygdala. So, and these things happen from a very young age. These regions of the brain, they just get rewired,
Hmm.
and over time, yeah, you begin to know empathy, let alone when you're a kid, you end up suppressing a lot of your emotions anyway.
Right. Because you
You
think you
know,
have to.
you think you have to, so you don't grow up learning normal, ways to or responses to different, different events and things
Right.
like that you face.
And I
So
think only in the last maybe 20, 30 years, which sounds like a long time, but it's not. But I think that psychologists and neurologists are just realizing the impact that childhood trauma really has, and even still learning um, how that impacts a developing brain.
right,
Um, that it can cause permanent changes,
yeah,
um, and goes so far to say that it's brain damage. Even in households where children are growing up with parents who are fighting, right? And kids witness that fighting.
because it just
It
changes your whole
changes
outlook.
how you're developing. And not
Yeah,
to say that these things can't be oftentimes healed,
and not that everyone
right? And think you can recircuit things. I
experiences
mean, there's
things
a
the
lot of
same.
therapy and
Right,
all kinds of stuff. And like yours, right? People perceive things differently.
they
So
process trauma
you could
differently.
grow up in a household with fighting that
Right,
maybe you're
and
more resilient
yeah,
to it,
I'm
right?
like, then I'm not gonna be a household where there's just tons of fights in them. I don't want that for myself growing
Right.
up,
So you
right?
become a more peaceful, more
Yes,
centered
right,
individual,
right.
right? Somebody else could witness the same thing.
Opposite direction.
It's all they know, and they become angry and hostile, and
That's the
personalities are volatile. And that's, I think, what makes this podcast so interesting
right.
is figuring out why, right? Like, why
Those dynamics, yeah.
does that happen?
Hmm.
Why is somebody so much more predisposed to turning in the wrong direction as opposed to making their life better?
I know it's always fascinating to me because I know someone who has siblings of abuse and just major trauma, yet that person decided that they wanted something different for
Hmm.
their lives. They didn't want to do that. If they had kids, they didn't want to bring that in. But then the siblings, on the other hand, went the opposite direction, and now that's what they're used to. So that's what the relationships they have,
Right.
And now there's a little resentment I feel toward the sibling who decided not to because they're like, what makes you, in their mind, to me, it's like, what makes you so better than
Like, why are
me?
you better?
Why are you
Right.
better than, like we went through the same things, or you witnessed, what
Yeah.
I went through? Like, why aren't you feeling how I feel?
Right. And is that response and that perception because of nurture, or is it nature? And it almost makes you think it is nature, because if it's nurture, then the other sibling would have the
The same,
same
yeah,
view.
yeah,
So why is it that one sees something so differently than the
than the
other?
other.
And it can come down even biologically to gender, right? Like males and females, and the way that male and female perceive
Perceive,
things,
yeah,
and how we are, raised even differently, even by parents who think they're raising their kids the same. They don't.
right,
You're going to raise your son differently than you raise your
right. It's
daughter.
just how it is.
It's human
It's how it's been.
nature.
Yeah,
And I don't think society, I don't think appreciate that enough, or really look at that as deeply as we should in trying to understand why things happen the way that they happen, why people do the things that they do. We're not always going to get answers,
no, we're
right?
not.
But
That's the fascinating part. You
it's
know?
interesting to see how nature and nurture really does impact somebody.
No, it is like, well, like you were saying, like having these siblings, same situation, and then one chooses one path and the other one chooses the other. And yeah, I think that probably is more of a nature thing.
Yeah.
I think so.
But Eileen,
Like I said, she was doomed from the start.
I think she was too. She did have a very sad life, and my heart breaks for Eileen, the child.
The child, yeah. Yeah.
Eileen, the adult, she could have made other choices. I just don't
She
know
knew
that she
right
was
from wrong.
capable.
She knew right from wrong, but like you said, yeah, I don't know if she was capable.
She knew it was wrong to kill these guys.
Right.
She tried to rationalize it.
Yes.
She knew it was wrong, and that's ultimately what did her in.
Yeah.
That they couldn't claim that she was, criminally insane.
She was fully aware, and that's the case a lot of the times. Once a person does something that they appear competent, like she kills them, she takes their shit, and she leaves them. Like that's not a crazy person. That's not a person who just was so overwhelmed with the emotional situation. They killed someone erratically and was very frenzied, and they were just like in complete shock. Like that's
Right.
not someone. That person is like maybe they are. Maybe they did have a crisis, a mental crisis,
Right.
so to speak. Rather than a person who's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this and take that, and I'm gonna show my girlfriend what I did and tell her about it. And we're gonna go on a joyride in people's cars.
Right. And people like that don't even really understand why somebody else would be like, oh my God, what did you just do?
I know.
Right. And
I
then
know.
they're shocked by it. Like, you're not proud of me that I just murdered this person, and I brought you all of,
The
I brought you this gold
spoils.
watch, and I got
Brought you the spoils.
right. Like
My hard-earned gains here.
right. And that's the difference. Like you can have mental illness. Doesn't mean that you don't know right from wrong.
Right.
And that's where we keep going back to in
Yeah.
this, where it doesn't justify taking somebody else's life. That is not.
It doesn't.
That is not your responsibility to do. It's not okay.
No, it's not. It's not okay. But, those are the ingredients that cooked up Aileen Wuornos.
Like I always say, be good to your kids.
Yes, please.